Okay, as I mentioned in the last tutorial, this will be 4.1. So this is where we left off in the fourth um, sequence with the deck completed. It's a group, so I don't have to worry about connecting to the geometry. So since I deleted the original circle, I will create a new one just out in the center here. And I'm going to make that 2 foot 6 inches. So that will give, that's the radius, so that gives me a 5 foot table. And then I'm going to double click on that, right click, and make it a group. All right, now whether I do this now or later, I'm going to choose the move tool, click, and just move it up in the air. And I'm going to move this 2.6 inches. That's, 2.6 feet. I'm sorry. That is 24, 6, 30 inches. That's kind of standard tabletop height, desk height. And that's what this is about. It's not 2.6 isn't a magic number. Whatever that height is for, if you're doing a bar height table, it's going to be higher. If you're doing a desk height table, 2 foot 6 is appropriate. Those are things you will learn over the next few years, but that's why I chose that dimension. I'm going to double click and open that up, and let's extrude this up to 1.5 inches just to make it that thickness. And now I'm exiting the group. So I've got my tabletop there, nice and round. Now, actually, somebody asked me this today, and let's see if I can do this. Right now, if I select that and do entity info, yeah, so right now, I can't do much about this. I type in 50, nothing happens because it's become a three-dimensional shape. So if this is actually smooth on the front because it's a circle, but it doesn't look very smooth because there are not enough segments in the tabletop. So let's back up, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up. There we go. So if you want to make sure that table is really round, choose your circle, type in 50, enter. Now we can come in here, 2.6, right there. Double click, make group, move tool, move vertically, 2.6. Open the group, double click, push pull, 1.5. Again, you can see it right down here. I just pulled up to 1.5. You can type it in. And now when I zoom in, it's just a little smoother table. So that's, if you want that smoother appearance, the smoothing only works on the surfaces. It doesn't change the number of segments in a circle or an arc. So if you want that to be really smooth, whether it's a table, whether it's a curvilinear walkway, whatever it is, you need to set that when you create the circle or the arc. Make sure you add the segments. Now, when I created this circle, if I wasn't happy with it, I could select the circle and change the number of segments in the entity info. But once I extrude it up, it no longer functions as a two-dimensional circle. So that's why I had to back up and do that over again. All right, so now I've got my tabletop. It's placed there. And since I want these other pieces, I've got the tabletop, I've got the tube that goes up through the middle that supports the umbrella, I've got the umbrella, and I've got the base. So I'm going to keep all those as separate groups. So I'm going to grab my circle again. It's still set on 50, which is fine. I'm going to move in, find the center, and make that. Again, if you notice what I'm doing, I'm moving the radius here. So if I do 1.5 inches, that's not 1.5 inches diameter, that's 1.5 inches radius. So I'm going to go down to 1 inch. That'll make a 2-inch radius. And it's perfectly centered on that. Double click, make it a group. And now I've got the tube, which I can double click on. Now, if I want to extrude it down, I can kind of go up underneath, go to this is my display styles, go to X-ray, push pull, and pull that down, and snap to the edge, turn off the X-ray, and you can see that it snapped it right down to the surface of that deck. And then I can take that again, move in here and pull that up, maybe another 4 feet above. Let's go 4 feet. 4 feet above the table. If you think that's too tall, well, then make it, let's see, we got 30 inches, 2'6" plus 4 is 6'6", right? No, that's not too bad. That keeps people from in. The umbrella table's coming down from that, so I think that's fine. Might even want to go higher than that, but we'll leave it there for now. Okay, so we've got, if we really want to get into this, we go Entity Info. That's called Tabletop. Sorry, I'm not typing very fast. I have a splint on my finger and I can't type anymore. So it's one finger hunt and peck method. All right, so we've got the tabletop. Let's pick this, Entity Info, and let's call that tube. And if we want to start really creating a hierarchy in our group, we can select both of those, right click, make a group, and we will call that umbrella table. So now we've established an overall group that contains everything, so I can go into that and start working on these pieces. So that's a group, that's a group, and that's a group, and that's perfect. So, well, while we're down here, let's go ahead and make the base. So since I can't select anything and I want to use what I have, I'm going to double click and open up this, select that, and then I'm going to use my offset, and I'm just using eyeballing it, saying there we go. Now I can select that, right click, make that a group, and let's go to Entity Info and we'll call that base. Okay, open that up, push-pull tool, let's go 1.5 inches, and then we want to make this a little slope just so it looks a little nicer. So I'll get my select tool, select around that, center circle, move, okay, and hold the Alt key down, and if I get the blue axis, which if I hit the up arrow, you can see it in there, it's barely blue, but I'm going up on the blue axis. And I've got a nice slope base so the water runs off of that, and it looks nice. Now, if I want to smooth this, I want to see all these lines. If you remember, I talked about using the eraser, and what do you see? Select items to erase, drag across multiple lines, shift equals hide, control, soften, smooth. So I could control smooth this with the eraser, but there's a lot of lines in there. So instead, I'm going to triple click, right click, and choose soften smooth edges. And basically, I'm taking this slider. If it gets a small enough angle, they'll show up. But if I move it up here, it's got all those smooth. It's perfect. Close it. Click in here, and that looks perfect. That's just what I want. And for this exercise, let's just say that I'm not going to model it, but there's a sleeve under here that holds the tabletop up, and everything's fine. We're not going to worry about legs for the table right now. Okay, so I'm inside the, I've got the group. I'm going to get all the way out. So far I've got the, let's look at this. I've got the umbrella table. I've got the top. I've got the tube. And inside the tube, I've got the base. And that hierarchy is actually okay to me. If you really wanted to pull the base out, you select it, click, pull it up here, and now move it up here actually, and now I've got umbrella table, tabletop, tube, base. They're all at the same level, which is really okay because, I mean, this in reality, if you buy this at Lowe's, this piece, the base, is separate from the tube. So we'll leave it at that. Okay, so now I'm going to get outside again, and I am going to zoom in on this a little bit. And hopefully I can use the regular polygon tool. And this right now is set to 6, which is exactly what I want. I'm going to move into the center. And I want this bigger. You know, if I hold here, you can see that's 4'8", whatever. So I'm going to go bigger than the table. Okay. Now, I didn't even check to see exactly how big that was, but I wanted to make sure it was bigger than the table. If you want to know, tape measure there to there, that is 3'4". That would make that a little more, 6'8". That's fine. And I'm just doing this visually. Now, I want to select that, group it, and now go inside that group. And I am going to draw lines across. Remember, in order to pull this up into a peak, since this is 6-sided, I'll just do 3 lines across. And I've got that shape. Now I can use the move tool, find that center point, hold the Alt key down, and just pull that up so I get the angle that I want. All right, so now I've got the umbrella. It's over the table a little bit. And this is kind of not quite where I want it to be, but I could pull this down, go to X-ray mode, do push-pull, and that's not going to help me. Okay, but here, hit the escape key, get rid of that. All right, so I don't know what I just did. I can't select that piece, so I'm going to get out of X-ray mode. So what I can do is just drag a rectangle around that, and actually I have to get in that group. If I can't see it, select it, then select the push-pull tool. And you can see I pulled up. I didn't pull it through the top, but it pulled it up far enough. So you can always use selection methods to get things selected and then pick the tool that you want. Okay, so now I've got, let's call that umbrella. Okay. And I'm going to go inside that umbrella. And actually, this, the way it is pretty good. But I want to create a little more interest, so I'm going to use the 2-point and bulge method for the, and I'm going to pull that up here. And when I do that, I wasn't even watching. I just know once I do this once, Sketchup is going to give me the same distance. And visually, you can see it. And actually, if there's a slight variation between those, that's okay, because these tables aren't perfectly symmetrical when they're blowing around in the wind. Okay, that one definitely is not the same. That's okay. Let's see how this works. And I'm going to take these, just delete them out of there. So I'm just clicking and hitting the delete key to get rid of those. And it looks like I missed one, so I'm going to get my arc tool back. There we go. Select, delete. Okay, so now I've got this nice shape. It looks a little more like a standard umbrella table. Now, if I want to create an edge that drops down a little bit, that's where we use a plugin we talked about today. This is something that Rhino can do by itself. SketchUp can't. But there are, like I said, lots of plugins that make SketchUp really versatile. So if I select all those surfaces, I'm going to use the Move tool, Control key, and move a copy down 1.5 inches. And while that's selected, I'm going to go to Extensions and choose Extrude Lines by 2 points. And my 2 points are from here, start at the bottom, to here. And it will just fill that in and extrude those lines up. And if I want to smooth these, you can select them one at a time, but I'm going to use the eraser tool. Hold the control key down. Control equals soften, smooth, right down here. You go, oops, undo that. I don't want to go over the bottom lines. And this is just, it's taking those lines, they're not erasing them, it's just smoothing them off so that what we get is a continuous surface. And what that means is when you go to change the colors on this, which I will do, paint bucket, let's go to colors, scrolling up, colors. Let's just pick the red, go red, 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 okay, red over here, red over here. Now, one thing you can save yourself a little time, if you go through and do this effectively, which I just colored all that, now I can go to white, and since I'm inside the group, if I hold the shift key down, every color that's left, which is this bluish color, will turn to white inside now. Well, it did. It just looks gray there because it's in the shade. But basically, that the shift key means change anything that's this color to the new color that I have. So now I've got this red and white umbrella that I can work with. So that's kind of how one way you can make this umbrella table. Each piece is under the umbrella. Well, okay, good example. Okay, I just made this and it wasn't inside the other group. So the umbrella table is here, but somehow that's not showing up in the group. So I'm going to click and hold the button down and drag that in there. So you can see base, tabletop, tube, umbrella. That's why the outliner is really powerful. It allows you to kind of reorganize things. If you miss something, you just drag it through here. And this is great because I can close this up, select the whole thing, or I can select any piece of it. And that's exactly the hierarchy that you need to set up within your models. Okay, so I'm going to close this one here and publish it so you can take a look at that process, because that gives you the basics of creating the table. And then I'll do another one for the chairs because that's kind of unique. And remember, you need 4 chairs. You only need to model 1. Once you've got 1 model, you can just copy that, make it a component, and it's good to go. And then once we do that, we will create a component from the umbrella table with 4 chairs and show you how to save that out. So anytime you have a model where you want an umbrella table and chairs, you just import that in and it's ready to go. And if you need to change colors, come into here, and you can select this. Let's go down here, pick, let's do a purple one. Shift key on this, everything changes to purple from there. Okay, so you can very quickly modify this once you've got it set up in a really modular way within a group or a component.